Welcome, Ms. Walter. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing very fine. Thank you so much for having me here tonight.
It is really a pleasure to have you. Now, I want you to tell us a little bit about the UN in TNT, please, because we started off saying it's a multi-country office. What does that mean?
So multi-country office means that out of the location of Trinidad and Tobago, I'm actually trying to coordinate the UN activities in a number of other countries as well. So Suriname, Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin. But I would say having the office here on the ground in Trinidad and Tobago, I think the relationship, work with and support for the government and the country and the people of Trinidad and Tobago is probably what guides us most in our day-to-day work.
And with that, we want you to tell us a little bit about the United Nations in Trinidad and Tobago specifically.
So the United Nations country team, as we call it, consists of 12 agencies, funds and programs that are here on the ground. Many names you know, UNICEF, of course our health team, PAHO, UNDP, UNHCR, IOM, a whole list of agencies that is every day on the ground working and supporting the government, but also working with civil society and increasingly our private sector partners. We have, however, a number of agencies that are collaborating and working for Trinidad and Tobago out of the region. The World Food Programme, UN Women, UNFPA, a lot of countries, country work that is getting out of the Caribbean region channeled into Trinidad and Tobago.
And I'd like to speak about those partnerships in just a little bit. But before that, though, as we stated in the opening, UN Day is on the 24th of October. Give us a little insight, because it seems as though there are so many days that the United Nations recognizes. What is UN Day itself about?
So UN Day is, of course, the day to commemorate really the start of the United Nations, the start of the United Nations shaping to phase multilateralism around the world. It's a member states organization. That means it's very important to remember everything we do, pursue or talk about is what member states such as Trinidad and Tobago ask us to do and to pursue. And so once a year we go back and remember to celebrate that the organization was, founded, came together, but also that, of course, the job is not done. Especially coming out of the pandemic, now coming out of the pandemic response that you've seen in many countries and the challenges, I would say it is more important than ever to have us help, us support countries on the ground.
And I appreciate the fact that you spoke about being able to celebrate yourself. And sometimes when you're doing work for others, you're doing the work that the UN does, it is so easy to become so immersed that it is hard to just step back and take a breath. But what are some of the planned activities possibly on the ground in Trinidad and Tobago, or some of the other jurisdictions that you have responsibility for UN Day this year?
I think what we like about this UN Day is that it not so much allows us to celebrate ourselves, but the work that we're doing on the ground. Because I think at the moment, maybe throughout, but especially at the moment, it's very hard to remember the successes that we had, the progress that countries such as Trinidad and Tobago have done and are achieving on the ground. And also to just take a look how this collaboration and this team effort worked. For example, over the last year and a half, where at the side of the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, maybe many partners on the ground, we managed to, I think, really support the country in its response to COVID-19, whether it's supporting through the Ministry of Health, frontline health care workers, or through the Ministry of Education, helping the country to get moving into the area of online education. And I think that's what we want to take the day really for, to point to the fact that even though it's hard, there are daily steps forward that we're making towards development, but also especially out of this pandemic.
And once again, you raised the issue of the pandemic. What has the response been like? How have the agencies, your team members, been coping, operating throughout this period of time in the pandemic?
Look, obviously it was extremely challenging, right, for the agencies, funds and programs, but especially for our government partners. So for us it was clear from day one that this is where we're called for, this is where we need to support. And support was provided and help throughout a number of areas, but I think just to highlight, obviously the area of health was one of predominant support through the COVAX facility and our PAHO WHO team. And we did manage to bring some of the first batches of vaccines on the ground when it was needed, but really also working in support of the fantastic Ministry of Health to help support online workers, building their capacities and just be there. Ministry of Education, the next, when we saw the country moving from the health crisis into the wider socioeconomic crisis, that became especially apparent in education. The support was provided to training teachers. I think more than 700 participated from Trinidad and Tobago in the UNESCO provided online training. How do you move from a classroom to now being an online educator? But also through UNICEF platforms were provided to help really shape this new era of digital online learning, which is very new. And last but not least, I think agencies, our teams from UNHCR, IOM, but also UNFPA helped to also look at the more vulnerable parts of society, in particular also immigrants and refugees that lost their jobs sometimes in the informal sector and were suddenly out there. So support through everything from food packages to hygiene packages, but also economic stabilization, as many of them had lost their livelihoods. And all of that really to support the country and the government in what was a very challenging situation.
And you raise some issues, and I want us to speak on them on the next side of the conversation. One of them is building capacity, and you spoke about the Ministry of Education. I really appreciate the fact, because there may be teachers who, this is the way I've taught, this is the way that I came out of the learning institution, and these are the resources I have. But in terms of being able to build capacity, so I feel a little more confident within myself, and I'm able to share that level of confidence with my charges who I am dealing with, as well as the fact that as opposed to just health, there's so many other issues that rear their head when you're thinking about the implications of the pandemic. But we get into that. We are speaking with Resident Coordinator of the United Nations, Marina Walter. Stay with us, or Walter rather, stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back. We are going in depth on the United Nations in Trinidad and Tobago. We are speaking with Resident Coordinator Marina Walter. And Ms. Walter, in terms of the relationship, now you spoke of the 12 agencies under the UN, but even before we go into that, how do you perceive your role specifically? Been here since 2018, how do you steer the ship forward?
I always like to describe my role as one of a conductor, right, that tries to make sure that all the different parts of the UN that are here on the ground, but also in our regional centers or headquarters, sing the same tune, right? Go line in line with exactly what the government and many of our counterparts in the ministries want us to do. And that's, I think, my key role here, and really also make sure that all the small activities or projects are linked up to the overall development vision that Trinidad and Tobago has for its future. We all are striving to reach this 2030 goal of those sustainable development goals, and Trinidad and Tobago has done a fantastic job. But our role, or my role, is to make sure that where we detect niches or where the government identifies gaps, that we fill those gaps and help the country help itself to get there.
What is that communication process like? Because I can imagine, yes, sovereign nation, but at the same time having dialogue saying, okay, well, looking at similar situations, we see this is working, we see this may prove a little more challenging. That level of partnership, how does that take place? Is it just government? You spoke, I think, about CSOs, NGOs. How does that partnership start, and how do you go forward with it?
So overall, we have what we call a big programming framework, right? Where we agree with the government and the line ministries what we want to do over a period of 4 or 5 years. But honestly, it's an everyday exchange with people in ministries. We're on the ground, and that's why I really like to describe it as a partnership. And it's a day-to-day, bottleneck analysis, and then to try to identify, so what else is needed? I would say that specifically over the last 2 years, we also brought in new partners, and I really want to shout out to the private sector here in the country that has in many ways internalized work around sustainable development goals and around the development already. And we've been able, I think, to bridge, to bring them to the table, and we have started a number of initiatives where the private sector helps us to co-create, to design solutions, very much in support of the overall development of the country.
And I like the fact that you speak about new partners, because normally when I hear partnerships with UN or UN agency, I don't necessarily think private. I think civilian service or as CSOs, right. I think NGOs. But is it something specific in these last 2 years, you think, that individuals are saying, okay, well, the bottom line, I can see how this, there's a win-win, there's something to be put into having this sort of engagement with the UN?
Look, I think that our traditional partners were always government and, of course, the civil society partners. But I think increasingly, first of all, in a country such as Trinidad and Tobago that is considered a high-income country, you're also looking for new financing options. So you need to look at the private sector. Globally also, it's clear that if we want to reach those development goals, we need the private sector. But I don't want the private sector to be reduced to the financing, because what I found is that very much here in Trinidad and Tobago, you have CEOs with a lot of foresight. They look and they count on environmental sustainability. So you need the private sector at the start of an initiative to help you, what we call co-create a good solution, because they're at the forefront of using innovation, of running their business so it goes for impact. And we found it really, really helpful to work with them. One initiative that we started is called Generation Unlimited, and it brings to the table private sector, banks and government to look at what sort of skills and education does the future youth of this country need to be employable, to be attractive in the workplace. And who would you ask for that? You ask the private sector, because they will employ. So we started this Generation Unlimited as an initiative to bring everyone together and really start shaping these sort of solutions for the future.
And that brings me to the topic of corporate social responsibility, training, building capacity, because as you rightly said, it makes more sense to get in almost to the level of investment to say, okay, well, these are the types of values, skill sets, competencies that I'd want in a person who I want to hire, as opposed to just saying, well, no one's making it, let me try to outsource. So in terms of that kind of training being offered by the UN, what is there on offer at this point in time?
Well, actually what we realized is that if you look at Trinidad and Tobago, I think the private sector spending in the area of $18 million in philanthropy per year. That's a good amount of money. But we realized that very often they are inherently referring to sustainable development goals, as does the government, but they're not necessarily talking the same language. So we worked with many of them and their foundations to get them on the same wavelengths, right? To see that we get what they're already doing also logged in as one of the achievements, moving a little bit closer through and to those goals that the country wants to see achieved by 2030.
And with that, it seems as though there's an overt push by the UN to help modernize the statistical ecosystem. Can you expand on that a little bit, please? Absolutely.
Look, I mean, it's very clear that if you're talking about policy making or even steering your own enterprise, it all goes back to the need of having the right digital setup, but also the sort of data. So we now have a number of initiatives working with government, the CSO, Ministry of Planning, on improving, so to say, the digital ecosystem. Why? Because it helps the country produce the sort of data you need for fact-based, evidence-based decision-making. We just secured a grant of $740,000 to just do that, help and support the government, the CSO, Ministry of Planning to improve the ecosystem, but also get ready for the upcoming census. And another initiative that we started, which was very successful, is a big data forum that really brings also other examples of, this is how you can use data and the collective data to improve some of the development challenges that you might still see. And that has been very, very sought after, very successful.
And this kind of ties in with some of what we were hearing from Andre Blanchard from the CSO. But if someone, CSO or a partner agency, wanted to contact the UN to try to engage, to say, okay, well, this is a brilliant idea that I have, and I want to see how you all can help to get it off the ground. How do they engage with you to do that, Ms. Walter?
I mean, ideally, you can just directly address my office because we know the partners and we can link anyone interested up with the right partners, us being one of them. And then also be on the lookout for the next Big Data Forum that will be taking place shortly. And again, it will be virtual, unfortunately. We still hope that eventually we'll get back together in person. But that's where we have, some of the bigger companies from Trinidad and Tobago. It's a close collaboration with Digicel, but also Facebook and others to see this is how you partner and this is how you drive this topic further.
And if there's one thing, Ms. Walter, I think we have just over a minute remaining in the conversation. If there's one thing you want someone to think about or remember about the United Nations and their work in Trinidad and Tobago, what would that be?
I think for us, from where we stand, we see fantastic opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago that on so many issues, Trinidad and Tobago recommends itself as the leader, whether it's the data, whether it's, on many of the policy areas. And we're just here to support the agenda and to support Trinidad and Tobago in its strengths and to continue to lead and maybe even grow this lead that it has. Trinidad and Tobago is very important for the region. And the better and the more this country leads, the better it will be for the region. Resident
Coordinator Marina Walter, thank you so much. And saying a happy UN Day when it comes on the 24th. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm DK Rosta. Thank you so much for joining us.